Greetings folks, I have an interesting action cam to look at today from Banggood. This is the Soocoo S300, interesting name. It is a true 4K 30 frames a second camera with image stabilisation at 4Ks and 30 frames a second, which puts it up with the top level of action cameras. It uses the Sony IMX377 sensor, which is the same as the Yi 4K camera, and the SJ-Cam SJ8 Pro, which I think is one of the best action cameras available. They are true GoPro competitors. So this one's using the same sensor. It's using a different chip. It's the HiSilicon HI3559V100, which I don't know anything about. It has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth remote, so without any further ado, let's open it up and have a look. First thing we notice, it comes with this beautiful little carry case that fits everything in it. Really nice size. See, it's sort of small, just the size of my hand. Open it up. There's the camera in its waterproof housing, and it's a black plastic waterproof housing, which is a bit different to all the other ones. Looks great. There's the Bluetooth remote, which we'll have a look at a little bit later on. And in the top here we get all the accessories. There's a good array of accessories. There's a note to tell you how to pair the Bluetooth remote. We get a nut spanner to help tighten up and undo these knobs here. We get a handlebar mount, cleaning cloth, lots of different sorts of brackets. We get an alternative back for the housing. This will be a one that can operate with the touchscreen. It does have a touchscreen, by the way, 2.35 inch touchscreen, as well as operating buttons, which is nice too. All the usual clips and brackets, sticky pads, USB cable. Now, I'm a bit confused. There may be two versions of this camera. On the website it says it uses a USB-C cable, which means you can plug it in either way, but this is a mini USB cable. So I don't know what's going on there. We get tripod mount, more brackets, a lens cover, which I always like, more brackets, warranty card, and instruction manual. Alright, let's have a closer look at the camera. Open up the housing. 2.33 inch touchscreen on the back. Navigation buttons on the side, shutter and mode button on the top. We have a couple of LEDs and lens there. We have the USB connection and a speaker and microphone as well. Tripod mount on the bottom, which is great. And the battery, decent sized battery. It's a 1250 milliamp hour one cell LiPo, and the SD card slot there. Now, being a 4K 30 frames a second camera, you will need a U3 class card to handle it. This is a SanDisk Extreme. The SanDisk Ultras are not quite fast enough. Looking at the screen now, so let's turn it on, push and hold the top button. And there we go. So you can see the settings. We've got a video time lapse, wide dynamic range. That's the one shot every 5 seconds. Wide angle view, the time remaining on the card, exposure value, and image stabilisation is off. That's the settings button, date and time down there, battery level, SD card, and whether it's recording or not. So you push the top button to get it recording, and you can see it starts flashing. So you can swipe in all directions to bring up different things, the different modes. If you swipe up, tap, swipe down to bring up Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, lock the screen, and turn it off. Swipe sideways to go into play mode. Swipe up for settings. Resolution 4K 30. We've got 2K, 2.7K at least. 1440, they are 4:3 aspect ratios. 180, 1080, 120, 60 and 30, 720, 240, 120, 60 and 30. Good selections there. Loop recording, image stabilize. Image stabilize works in 4K 30 frames a second, which is absolutely fantastic. It is a very, very saturated and contrasty image, so wide dynamic range is, I think, it should be on all the time. Wouldn't mind a bit less contrast and saturation, to be honest. Underwater setting, make it a bit redder for underwater. Encoding in H.264 or H.265. Don't worry about that if you don't understand what that's about. Different field of view. Metering mode. Auto white balance, exposure. That's all very good. Camera settings, got different languages, date and time, format the SD card, auto shut off and all that sort of stuff. Timestamp, distortion correction, which works very well. Flip it upside down, turn the keytone on and off. I'll turn that on for the moment. Display on and off. Bluetooth match. I'll show you that in a minute. Your local power frequency, Wi-Fi, factory reset, and this is the firmware version that we're on at the moment. Now let's look at the photo settings. Got resolutions, goes right up to 16 megapixel. 8 megapixel is usually the 16:9 aspect ratio. I'll put it on that for the moment. Shutter, self-timer, time-lapse, exposure, ISO, all the good stuff, image stabilize, underwater. Very cool. So what I'll do now is try and pair the Bluetooth remote. So we go to settings, Bluetooth match, and apparently we hold down the power and the photo button at the same time. Oh, there we go, we're paired now. Excellent. Photo, excellent, this is working now. Photo. Video recording, that's great. So yeah, it looks like you put it into Bluetooth match and hold down the camera and the power button at the same time until you get the blue light not flashing. Took me a couple of times, but it works now. Okay, now we're looking at the Wi-Fi app. If we can find it, there's this, download this Soocoo Wi-Fi app. Start Wi-Fi, tells you the password and everything there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, join. And we're in. Come on, we should be joining. So I'm having trouble connecting. I've got Wi-Fi on. Yeah, Wi-Fi's on. I've joined the network. Anyway, maybe my phone is too old for this one. We'll give up on that for the moment. All right, it's time to have a look at some of the results. Image stabilization on, 4K 30. Image stabilization off, 4K 30.
Alright, time for a sum up of the Soocoo S300 camera. It's an interesting mix of some really good stuff and some not so good stuff. The 4K 30 frames a second and 2.7K 30 frames a second with image stabilization is awesome. Super sharp, highly saturated, maybe a little bit too saturated and too contrasty for my taste really, but it's sort of a spectacular looking image. The lens isn't all that good. There's a lot of colour fringing up in the corners, that sort of dark band on one side of the detail and light band on the other side that makes it look a little bit weird. Beautiful in the centre though. The sharpness drops off a lot at 1080p, which is a real pity because that's probably my most common resolution to use. Beautiful at 4K and 2.7K, but not so good at 1080. I didn't even try the 720. I really like the carry case and the waterproof housing. They are really nice quality. The battery life, I have heard in other reviews that the battery life was really short, like 35 or 45 minutes. I did a test, 4K 30 frames a second, and mine recorded for an hour before it filled up a 32 gig card. Still had battery life left in it after that, so at least an hour recording is what I got. The time-lapse feature is really nice, especially on 4K and 2.7K. So it's interesting. My final recommendation, if you don't want to use 1080p and you're happy using 2.7K or 4K, then it's super sharp and super saturated. If you like that sort of image, then it's awesome with image stabilization right up to 4K 30. That's pretty amazing. And I'd really like a better quality lens that didn't have that fringing up in the corners. Otherwise, it's a cheaper full 4K 30 frames a second camera with image stabilization. Thanks for watching.